Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking at the small blue planet on his screen. Earth. Target number 848. He had conquered 847 worlds before this one, and each victory had been easy. His empire ruled the galaxy because they were smart, strong, and patient. They studied their targets for months before attacking. They knew exactly how to win. The humans living on Earth had no idea what was coming. Vextar scouts had watched them for 6 months. They saw primitive rockets that barely reached their own moon. They saw weapons that used simple explosives and metal bullets. The humans fought each other constantly over land, resources, and beliefs. They were divided into hundreds of small nations that could never work together. Perfect prey. Captain Jake. Morrison was drinking coffee at Luna Base when the alarm started screaming. He dropped his cup and ran to the control room. The night shift was staring at their screens with wide eyes. "Sir, you need to see this," said Lieutenant Amy Foster, pointing at the radar display. 30 large objects just appeared at the edge of our solar system. They're moving toward Earth. Jake felt his stomach drop. The objects were huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. They moved in perfect formation, like a military fleet. But that was impossible. Earth had never made contact with aliens before. "Get me General Rodriguez on the emergency line," Jake ordered. "Right now." On Earth, Dr. Lisa Carter was sleeping when her phone rang. She worked for NASA as their top expert on possible alien life. For 20 years, she had dreamed of making first contact with beings from another world. She never imagined it would happen like this. "Dr. Carter, we have a situation," said the voice on the phone. "We need you in Washington immediately. Military transport is already on the way to pick you up." Lisa got dressed quickly and grabbed her emergency bag. She had prepared for this moment her whole career. As she waited for the transport, she looked up at the stars and wondered what was coming. General Alex Rodriguez had not slept in 18 hours. He sat in the Pentagon's war room, surrounded by screens showing the alien fleet. Every few minutes, his phone rang with calls from world leaders. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What did the aliens want? "Any response to our transmissions?" Rodriguez asked. "Nothing, sir," replied Colonel Ryan Mitchell. "We've sent messages in every language, math, music, and pictures. They're ignoring us completely." Rodriguez rubbed his tired eyes. He had spent 40 years in the military, fighting in wars across the globe. But this was different. This was not just about America, or even Earth. This was about the survival of the human race. The alien fleet moved closer to Earth every hour. They traveled faster than anything humans could build, but they were not rushing. They moved like hunters who knew their prey could not escape. Admiral Vextar reviewed his battle plans one more time. The humans had approximately 200 military satellites in orbit around their planet. Their largest warship was only 400 meters long. Their most powerful weapons were nuclear missiles that moved slowly and could be easily destroyed. The invasion would follow standard protocol. First, his ships would destroy all human satellites and space stations. Second, they would attack the largest military bases from orbit. Third, ground troops would land in major population centers. The humans would surrender within 72 hours, just like every other species had done. Vextar's aide, Commander Zekmol, approached with a datapad. "Admiral, our computers have finished analyzing human military communications. Their tactical knowledge is surprisingly extensive, but their technology is primitive." "Explain," Vextar said. "They have detailed records of thousands of battles and wars. They study military strategy like a science. However, their weapons use chemical explosives and kinetic projectiles. They should pose no significant threat to our forces." Vextar nodded. Every species fought wars, but most civilizations moved beyond primitive conflict once they reached the stars. Humans were still using the same basic weapons their ancestors had used centuries ago. It showed how backward they were. Captain Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet through Luna Base's telescope. The ships were beautiful in a terrible way. They looked like massive daggers made of dark metal and glowing energy. Even from millions of kilometers away, they made him feel small and helpless. "Sir, we're getting reports from Earth," said Lieutenant Foster. "Every government is mobilizing their military. The President has declared a global emergency." Jake had served in the Space Force for 15 years. He had always known that humanity might encounter alien life someday. But in every scenario they had planned, the aliens were peaceful explorers or traders. No one had seriously prepared for this. Dr. Lisa Carter arrived at the Pentagon as the sun was rising. She was escorted to the war room, where dozens of military officers and scientists were working frantically. General Rodriguez looked exhausted but alert. "Dr. Carter, thank you for coming," Rodriguez said. "We need your expertise. What can you tell us about these aliens?" Lisa studied the images of the alien ships on the screens. They were clearly advanced technology, probably thousands of years ahead of humanity. The fact that they were ignoring all attempts at communication was not a good sign. "General, based on their behavior, I believe they view us as inferior," Lisa said carefully. "They're not interested in talking because they don't see us as equals. This looks like a military operation, not a diplomatic mission." The room fell silent. Everyone had hoped the aliens might be peaceful. Despite their threatening appearance, Admiral Vestar gave the order to begin the attack. His fleet moved into Earth's solar system like a dark storm. The humans had one day to live in peace before. Their world changed forever. He had no idea that he was about to make the worst mistake in galactic history. The first alien ships entered Earth's atmosphere over New York City at dawn. Sergeant Kate Williams watched from a rooftop in Manhattan as the massive vessels descended through the clouds. They moved slowly, like they owned the sky. Behind them came smaller ships carrying ground troops. Kate had been in the Army for 12 years. She had fought in 3 different wars on Earth, but nothing had prepared her for this. She spoke into her radio with a steady voice that hid her fear. "All units, this is Bravo 6. Enemy landing craft approaching Times Square. Prepare to engage on my signal." The aliens had destroyed most of Earth's satellites during the night. They had also bombed major military bases around the world. But they had made one mistake. They thought destroying big targets would make humans surrender. They did not understand that human soldiers were trained to fight even when things looked hopeless. Admiral Vestar watched the invasion begin from his command ship. His computers showed green lights everywhere. Earth's orbital defenses were gone. Their major military installations were burning. The first wave of ground troops was landing without resistance. "Admiral, the humans are not broadcasting surrender messages," reported Commander Zekmol. "Our translators are picking up military chatter instead." "Impossible," Vestar said. "Show me." The main screen displayed intercepted human communications. Soldiers were reporting to their commanders. Pilots were requesting permission to attack. Citizens were evacuating to predetermined shelters. It looked like the humans were preparing to fight. They must not understand their situation, Vestar decided. Increase the bombing. Target their government buildings. They will surrender when their leaders are gone. Colonel Ryan Mitchell sat in the cockpit of his F-35 fighter jet, waiting for takeoff clearance. Around him, 19 other pilots were doing the same. They all knew this was probably a suicide mission. The alien ships were too big and too advanced. But orders were orders. "Ghost Squadron, this is Control," came the voice over his radio. "You are cleared for takeoff." Your target is the alien transport ships over Manhattan. Hit them hard and fast. Ryan's jet roared down the runway and into the sky. Behind him, his squadron followed. They flew low to avoid the big alien warships and headed straight for the troop carriers. The aliens did not expect an attack. Their ships had powerful shields and weapons, but they were designed to fight other starships in space. They were not ready for small, fast fighters attacking from multiple directions at once. Ryan locked onto the nearest transport and fired 2 missiles. The alien ship's shields stopped the first one, but the second one punched through and exploded. Inside the hull, the transport spun out of control and crashed into a building. "First kill," Ryan shouted into his radio. "Their shields can't handle multiple hits." Lieutenant Chris Baker led his Navy SEAL team through the sewers under Washington, D.C. Above them, alien ground troops were landing near the White House. The SEALs had been ordered to gather intelligence on enemy forces and disrupt their operations. Chris had fought terrorists in 6 different countries. He knew how to move without being seen and strike without warning. The aliens might have better technology, but they had never faced human special forces before. "Target acquired," whispered Petty. Officer Dan Murphy over the radio. "Single alien patrol, 3 contacts, moving toward the Capitol building." "Take them quiet," Chris ordered. The SEALs emerged from manholes behind the alien patrol. The aliens were tall, with gray skin and advanced armor. They carried energy weapons that could cut through steel. But they moved in straight lines and talked loudly to each other. They had no idea they were being hunted. Chris and his team struck simultaneously. They used knives and silenced weapons to kill all 3 aliens before they could call for help. Then they dragged the bodies into an alley and took their weapons and equipment. "Control, this is SEAL Team 6, Chris reported. "We have alien weapons. And 1 prisoner. The enemy bleeds red, just like us." Major Amy Thompson watched alien dropships land in the park across from the Pentagon. She commanded a company of Marines who had been ordered to defend the building at all costs. They had set up defensive positions using everything they could find: concrete barriers, sandbags, abandoned cars, and office furniture. The aliens came out of their ships in perfect formation. They wore powered armor and carried energy rifles. They moved like soldiers who had never lost a battle. Amy counted at least 200 enemies approaching her position. "Marines, remember your training," Amy said over the radio. "Aim for the joints in their armor. Use cover and movement. Make every shot count." The aliens advanced across the open ground, expecting the humans to run or surrender. Instead, they walked into a carefully planned ambush. The Marines opened fire from multiple positions, using rifles, machine guns, and rocket launchers. The first row of aliens fell immediately. Their armor was strong, but human bullets could still find weak spots. The aliens tried to return fire, but they were confused by the coordinated attack. They had expected to fight panicked civilians, not trained soldiers. Admiral Vextar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Red warning lights were flashing across the screen. 3 transport ships had been destroyed by primitive human aircraft. A patrol unit had vanished without sending a distress signal. The assault on the Pentagon was meeting fierce resistance. "This is impossible," Vextar muttered. "They should have surrendered by now." "Admiral, we're receiving reports from all landing." "Zones," said Commander Zekmel. "The humans are fighting back everywhere. They're using tactics our computers don't recognize." Vextar pulled up the tactical analysis. Human forces were using something called guerrilla warfare. They hit fast and disappeared. They used the terrain to their advantage. They targeted officers and communication equipment. They fought like they had been planning this for years. "Sir, there's something else," Zekmel continued. Our intelligence was wrong about human military capability. They're not just using primitive weapons. They're adapting our technology in real time. The main screen showed a human soldier firing an alien energy rifle at an alien patrol. Somehow, the humans had figured out how to use captured weapons within. Hours of first contact. Sergeant Kate Williams crouched behind a destroyed car, holding an alien energy rifle she had taken from a dead enemy soldier. The weapon was lighter than her regular rifle and twice as powerful. She had figured out how to operate it by watching the aliens use it. "Bravo 6 to all units," she said into her radio. "I've got 20 more alien weapons here. Send someone to pick them up. These things pack a serious punch." Around her, the battle for New York was raging. The aliens controlled the landing zones, but the humans controlled everything else. Every street corner was a potential ambush. Every building was a fortress. The aliens were learning that conquering a city full of angry humans was not as easy. As their computers had predicted, Kate aimed at an alien officer who was trying to coordinate his troops. She pulled the trigger and watched him fall. The alien soldiers around him looked confused without their leader. Humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They knew how to break enemy morale, disrupt communications, and turn a superior force against itself. The aliens were about to learn why Earth had never been conquered before. Colonel Ryan, Mitchell's fighter squadron had lost 6 planes, but they had destroyed 12 alien transports. As he flew back to base to refuel, Ryan could see smoke rising from battles across the city. The aliens were winning, but they were paying a price they had never paid before. "Control, this is Ghost Leader," Ryan reported. "Mission successful. Enemy casualties confirmed. Requesting immediate rearm and refuel. We're going back out there." For the first time in galactic history, an alien invasion was meeting real resistance. The Zeltharian Empire was about to discover that humans were different from every other species they had conquered. They were about to learn what happened when you attacked a world full of warriors. Dr. Sam Parker had not slept in 3 days. He stood in the underground laboratory beneath MIT, surrounded by alien technology that his team had recovered from the battlefield. Pieces of destroyed alien ships, weapons, armor, and communication. Devices covered every table. "We've cracked their shield frequency," Sam announced to his team of scientists and engineers. "Their energy barriers work on a rotating harmonic pattern. If we time our attacks correctly, we can punch right through them." His assistant, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, looked up from her computer. "Sam, you need to see this. I've been analyzing their power sources. They use some kind of crystal matrix that stores incredible amounts of energy. But here's the interesting part. It's unstable when exposed to certain electromagnetic frequencies." Sam smiled for the first time in days. Human scientists were doing something no other species had ever accomplished. They were reverse engineering alien technology while the war was still going on. Captain Nina Foster sat in a hidden bunker 50 feet below Chicago. Around her, communication specialists worked at computers connected to a network that the aliens could not detect. She had spent 2 years setting up this system as part of a secret military project. Now it was humanity's lifeline. "Phoenix Base, this is Chicago Underground," Nina spoke into her microphone. "We have confirmed reports from 17 cities. Human forces are adapting faster than alien predictions. Recommend shifting to Phase 2 operations." The network carried messages between resistance cells across the globe. Military commanders shared tactical information in real time. Scientists sent research data to weapons manufacturers. Civilians reported alien movements to military units. For the first time in human history, the entire species was working together. Nina pulled up a tactical map on her screen. Green dots showed human positions. Red dots showed alien forces. The pattern was clear. Humans were fighting smarter, not harder. Corporal Danny Hughes crawled through the rubble of downtown Detroit, carrying a backpack full of homemade explosives. He was a combat engineer, trained to build and destroy things under enemy fire. The aliens had better technology, but they had never faced someone who could turn ordinary materials into deadly weapons. Danny spotted an alien patrol moving down the street. 6 soldiers in powered armor, walking in formation. They felt safe because their armor could stop human bullets and their shields could deflect energy weapons. They had no idea that Danny had just planted 20 pounds of thermite and aluminum powder under the street they were walking on. Danny pressed the detonator button. The explosion ripped through the concrete and sent superheated metal fragments in every direction. The alien armor, designed to stop energy beams and projectiles, could not handle molten steel at 4,000 degrees. Engineering base, this is Danny, he reported through his radio. Confirmed kills using the new thermite mixture. Their armor can't handle extreme heat. Pass it on to all units. Commander Rachel Stone stood on the bridge of her submarine, 200 feet below the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. Above her, alien ships were landing troops on the coast. The aliens controlled the air and most of the land, but they had forgotten about the oceans. Sonar contact, reported her weapons officer. Large alien vessel on the surface, bearing 270. Looks like a troop transport. Fire tubes 1 and 2, Rachel ordered. Let's see how their shields work underwater. 2 torpedoes raced through the water toward the alien ship. The first torpedo detonated against the ship's energy shield, creating a massive bubble of superheated water. The second torpedo passed through the disrupted shield and hit the hull directly. The alien ship broke in half and sank in less than 2 minutes. Target destroyed, Rachel announced. All alien ships in this area are now submarine targets. They can't use their energy weapons effectively underwater. Admiral Vextar paced back and forth on his command bridge, reading reports that made no sense. In 3 days of fighting, his invasion force had lost more ships and soldiers than in the previous 10 conquests combined. Show me the tactical analysis again, he ordered. Commander Zekno activated the main display. Admiral, the humans are not fighting like any species we've encountered before. They're using what their military calls combined arms tactics. They coordinate different types of forces to create maximum effectiveness. The screen showed examples from around Earth. In one city, human aircraft attacked alien shields while ground forces fired armor-piercing rounds through the weakened barriers. In another location, submarines destroyed alien ships while coastal artillery provided cover fire. Everywhere, humans were combining old and new weapons in ways that alien computers could not predict. There's more, sir, Zekmel continued. They're sharing information across their entire planet instantaneously. When one human unit discovers an alien weakness, every human unit knows about it within minutes. Vextar stared at the reports. Humans had turned their whole planet into a military academy. They were learning from every battle and teaching each other how to fight more effectively. Dr. Helen Brooks worked in a biosafety laboratory in Atlanta, studying alien blood samples that soldiers had collected from the battlefield. She was a specialist in biological warfare, and she had found something interesting. Their immune system is incredible, she explained to her research team. They're resistant to every Earth disease we've tested. But they have one weakness. They're vulnerable to certain atmospheric changes. Helen pointed to her computer screen, which showed the results of her experiments. If we can introduce specific chemicals into the air around alien forces, it will interfere with their breathing apparatus. Their armor filters can't handle certain combinations of Earth gases. Within hours, Helen's discovery was transmitted to military units worldwide. Chemical engineers began producing gas grenades that could disable alien troops without harming humans. Once again, human adaptability was turning the tide of battle. Commander Tony Black sat in the cockpit of humanity's first hybrid fighter aircraft. His jet used human engines and alien weapon systems that Dr. Parker's team had figured out how to operate. It was faster than any human aircraft and more maneuverable than any alien ship. "Ghost Squadron, this is Black Leader," Tony said over his radio. "Beginning attack run on alien command ship. Follow my lead and watch for their energy weapons." Tony's squadron dove toward the massive alien vessel hovering over Los Angeles. The ship's defensive systems fired energy beams at the approaching fighters, but the human pilots used evasive maneuvers that confused the alien targeting computers. Tony fired his alien plasma cannons at the command ship's shield generators. The weapons, modified by human engineers, punched through the alien defenses and caused secondary explosions throughout the ship. "Direct hit," Tony shouted. "Their command ship is going down." Captain Susan Grant watched the alien command ship crash into the ocean from her position on the Santa Monica Pier. She commanded an Army Corps of Engineers unit that had spent the last 3 days turning Los Angeles into a fortress. Every major street had anti-vehicle barriers made from concrete and steel. Every tall building had been converted into a sniper's nest. Every tunnel and sewer had been booby-trapped with explosives. The aliens might control parts of the city, but they had to fight for every block. "Engineering Command, this is Grant," Susan reported. "Enemy command ship neutralized. Beginning Phase 3 fortification. Estimate completion in 6 hours." Around her, soldiers and civilians worked together to build defensive positions. Humans had spent thousands of years learning how to defend cities from invaders. Now they were using that knowledge against an enemy from the stars. Admiral Vex Tar received the report about his lost command ship with growing alarm. The humans were not just surviving his invasion, they were learning how to win. "Sir, we're detecting something else," said Commander Zekmo. "Human industrial facilities are converting to military production. They're manufacturing weapons designed specifically to fight us." Vexstar looked at the intelligence reports. Human factories that had been making cars yesterday were producing anti-aircraft missiles today. Humans were treating the invasion like a problem to be solved through engineering and mass production. "Admiral, there's one more thing," Zekmo said quietly. "Our prisoners report that humans have been studying military strategy for their entire recorded history. They have detailed records of thousands of battles, wars, and conflicts. They treat warfare like a science." For the first time since the invasion began, Admiral Vestar felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. The humans were not just fighting back, they were getting better at it every day. The Zeltharian Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked the only species in the galaxy that considered war to be both an art and a science, and the humans were just getting started. The war room in the Zeltharian capital ship was filled with tension. High Admiral Kethrin, Supreme Commander of the Empire's military forces, studied the reports from Earth with growing disbelief. No species had ever resisted a Zeltharian invasion. For more than 72 hours, Earth had been fighting back for 2 weeks. "Explain to me how a primitive species has destroyed 15% of our invasion fleet," Kethrin demanded. Admiral Vextar stood at attention, his pride wounded. "Sir, these humans are unlike any species we have encountered. They adapt their tactics constantly. They learn from every engagement. Their entire planet has become a military training ground." "Excuses," Kethrin snapped. "I am sending the Shadow Legion to finish this. Elite troops with our most advanced weapons. These humans will learn what happens when they defy the Empire." General Marcus Webb crouched in the ruins of a Philadelphia office building, watching alien reinforcements land through his binoculars. He had spent 20 years in Delta Force before becoming commander of special operations. He had seen the new alien troops, and they were different from the first wave. These aliens wore black armor that seemed to absorb light. They moved faster and more carefully than the previous soldiers. Their weapons fired different types of energy that could cut through human cover like paper. "All units, this is Webb," he spoke into his encrypted radio. "Enemy has deployed elite forces. New threat assessment. Extreme danger. Switch to Alpha Protocol immediately." Around the city, Special Forces teams received the message and changed their tactics. Alpha Protocol meant no direct confrontation. Hit and run attacks only. Target their equipment and supplies, not their soldiers. Dr. Helen Brooks had been working non-stop in her laboratory for 5 days. Her biological weapons had been effective against the first wave of aliens, but the new troops had better protection. She needed something stronger. "I've got it," she announced to her research team. "The elite troops have enhanced immune systems, but they still need to breathe. I've developed an aerosol compound that attacks the respiratory filters directly." Her assistant, Dr. Mark Thompson, looked worried. "Helen, this compound is extremely dangerous. If it gets into the wrong hands, ... We're fighting for the survival of our species," Helen replied firmly. "Deploy it to all frontline units immediately." Commander Tony Black led his hybrid fighter squadron on a dawn patrol over Texas. Below them, a massive alien battleship was moving toward Houston. The ship was 3 times larger than anything they had seen before, and it bristled with weapon systems. "Command, this is Black Leader," Tony reported. "We have a problem. This thing is bigger than a city, and our weapons aren't going to scratch it." "Black Leader, this is Control," came the reply. "Dr. Parker's team has a new toy for you. Return to base for immediate upgrade." An hour later, Tony was back in the air with weapons he could barely understand. His fighter now carried human-made antimatter missiles based on captured alien technology. Each missile could destroy a city block. "Weapons hot," Tony announced. "Beginning attack run. If this doesn't work, we're all dead." Dr. Kevin Smith worked in a secret laboratory beneath the Nevada desert. He was a theoretical physicist who had been studying alien energy systems since the invasion began. Now he had found a way to turn human science into a weapon. The alien ships use quantum field generators to maintain their structure. He explained to the military officers watching his demonstration. "If we can disrupt those fields with a focused gravitational pulse, their ships will literally tear themselves apart." General Rodriguez, who had flown in from Washington to see the demonstration, looked skeptical. "Doctor, are you saying you can destroy alien ships using gravity?" "Not just destroy them," Kevin smiled. "I can make them collapse into microscopic black holes. The technology already exists. We just need to scale it up." Captain Joe Adams sat in the pilot seat of a captured alien shuttle, studying the control systems. He commanded a special unit called the Orders soldiers trained to assault enemy ships in space. The aliens had never faced boarding actions before because no other species had the courage to attack spaceships with small teams of infantry. "Remember the plan," Joe told his team over the radio. "We hit their command ship hard and fast. Take out their communications first, then their engines. Leave the command center for last." Behind him, 20 soldiers checked their equipment one final time. They wore modified alien armor and carried weapons that combined human and alien technology. They had trained for this mission using captured alien vessels. The shuttle approached the alien command ship invisibly, using stealth technology that Dr. Parker's team had developed. The aliens never saw them coming. President Maria Johnson stood in the Oval Office, surrounded by her military advisors. On the screens around the room, She could see battles raging across the planet. Human forces were holding their ground, but the cost was enormous. "Madam President," said General Rodriguez, "Dr. Smith's gravitational weapon is ready for deployment. One test shot completely destroyed an alien cruiser. But if we use this technology, there's no going back. We'll be escalating to weapons of mass destruction." Maria looked at the casualty reports on her desk. 50 million humans were dead or missing. Entire cities had been reduced to rubble. The aliens had shown no mercy. "Do it," she said quietly. "End this war." Admiral Vextar watched his elite Shadow Legion forces advance through the ruins of Detroit. These were the Empire's finest soldiers, veterans of 100 campaigns. They had never been defeated in battle. Within an hour, half of them were dead. The humans had developed new tactics specifically to fight elite troops. They used biological weapons that attacked alien breathing systems. They employed electromagnetic pulses that disabled alien electronics. Most terrifying of all, they had learned to turn captured alien weapons into booby traps. "This is impossible," Vextar muttered, watching his tactical display. "How can primitives defeat our best soldiers?" "Sir," reported Commander Zekmo, "we're receiving intelligence that explains their effectiveness. The humans have been cataloging every engagement, analyzing our tactics, and distributing counter-strategies to their entire military in real time." "Show me," Vextar ordered. The main screen displayed intercepted human communications. Military analysts were studying alien battle footage and identifying weaknesses. Scientists were developing new weapons based on captured technology. Engineers were building defenses specifically designed to stop alien attacks. "They're treating this war like a research project," Zekmo continued. "Every battle makes them more effective against us." High Admiral Catherine paced the bridge of his flagship, reading reports that defied all military logic. The humans had not only survived the Shadow Legion assault, they had captured several elite soldiers alive and were interrogating them for tactical intelligence. "Sir, we have another problem," his aide reported nervously. "Long-range sensors are detecting human spacecraft approaching our outer defense perimeter." "Impossible," Catherine snapped. "Humans barely have interplanetary travel. They cannot reach our ships." "Sir, the analysis suggests they are using our own technology against U.S. Somehow they have reverse-engineered our faster-than-light drives." Captain Joe Adams' boarding team had successfully captured the alien command ship's bridge. Around him, alien officers lay unconscious from human stun weapons. His team was downloading everything from the ship's computers: star charts, tactical databases, and most importantly, the location of the main alien fleet. "Command, this is Adams," he reported. "Package secured. We have their navigation data and fleet positions. Transmitting now." The information raced through human communication. Networks at the speed of light. Within minutes, every human commander on Earth knew exactly where the alien reinforcements were hiding. Commander Tony Black's antimatter missile struck the alien battleship's main reactor. The explosion was visible from orbit as the massive vessel disintegrated in a ball of pure energy. Around him, his squadron watched in amazement as pieces of the alien ship rained down over Texas. "Command, this is Black Leader," Tony reported. "Target destroyed. The big alien ship is gone. Completely gone." Dr. Kevin Smith's gravitational weapon fired for the first time in actual combat. The beam struck an alien cruiser and compressed it into a point smaller than an atom in less than a second. The surrounding alien ships fled in panic as they watched physics itself turn against them. "Gravitational weapon successful," Kevin reported to the Pentagon. "One shot, one kill. The aliens have never seen anything like this." Admiral Vextar stared at his tactical display as red warning lights flashed across every screen. Half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. His elite troops were in full retreat. The humans had somehow acquired weapons that violated everything he knew about. Physics. Sir, incoming transmission from High Command, reported ZEK single quotes mole.high. Admiral Kethrin's face appeared on the screen, his expression grim. Admiral Vextar, you are relieved of command. I am taking personal control of this operation. Sir, with respect, these humans are not like any species we have faced before. Vextar tried to explain. They learn too quickly. They adapt too fast. We need to reconsider our approach. There will be no retreat, Kethrin declared. I am bringing the full might of the Empire to bear on this primitive world. Every ship, every soldier, every we. High Admiral Kethrin's entire battle fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. 300 warships, the largest military force in galactic history, moved toward the small blue planet that had dared to resist the Empire. Kethrin stood on the bridge of his flagship, confident that overwhelming force would succeed where strategy had failed. No species could stand against the full might of the Zeltharian Empire. He had no idea that humans had spent the last month preparing for exactly this moment. Bobby Chun watched the alien fleet approach from his position aboard the UNS Defiance, humanity's first true starship. Around him, 49 other vessels waited in formation behind the dark side of Earth's moon. They looked small compared to the alien ships, but appearances could be deceiving. All ships, this is Admiral Chun, he announced over the fleet communication system. Operation Nemesis is now active. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. Anymore, we're fighting for our future among the stars. The human fleet had been built in secret using alien technology captured during the ground war. Each ship carried weapons that the aliens had never seen before, designed by human engineers who thought differently than any species in the galaxy. Engineer Lisa Murphy checked the status of her creation one final time. The UN's Defiance carried humanity's most advanced weapon, a device that could turn a star's own energy against enemy fleets. It was based on alien technology, but improved with human innovation. Admiral, the stellar resonance cannon is ready for deployment, Lisa reported. One shot will disrupt every alien ship within a light-minute radius. How does it work? Sean asked. We fire a focused gravitational pulse at the sun, which causes a controlled solar flare. The electromagnetic radiation will overload every alien ship's electrical system simultaneously. It's like a galaxy-sized electromagnetic pulse. Dr. Kevin Smith had been working non-stop for 3 weeks, developing weapons that alien science considered impossible. His gravitational bombs could collapse matter into microscopic black holes. His quantum disruptors could make enemy ships exist and not exist at the same time. His temporal lines could slow down alien vessels until they were effectively frozen. In space, President Johnson has authorized the use of all experimental weapons, Kevin announced to his research team. We're about to field test technology that's 50 years ahead of our normal development schedule. Captain Joe Adams led a fleet of captured alien ships, each one crewed by human soldiers who had learned to operate alien technology better than the aliens themselves. His mission was to infiltrate the enemy formation and strike at their command vessels from within. Remember, we look like them from the outside, Joe told his captains over the radio. Get close, identify their flagship, then hit it with everything. We have. Make them afraid of their own ships. President Maria Johnson sat in the underground command bunker beneath Washington, D.C., watching displays that showed the approaching alien fleet. Around her, military commanders and scientists waited for her decision to begin humanity's first interstellar war. Madam President, said General Rodriguez, all our forces are in position. The aliens outnumber us 6-1, but we have advantages they don't know about. Maria looked at the casualty estimates on her desk. The best-case scenario showed millions of human deaths. The worst-case scenario showed the complete extinction of the human race. "Begin the attack," she ordered. High Admiral Catherine watched with satisfaction as his fleet approached Earth. The planet's defenses looked pathetic compared to his armada. A few dozen small ships hiding behind the moon could not possibly threaten his forces. "All ships, prepare for orbital bombardment," Catherine ordered. "We will glass this entire planet and end this rebellion once and for all." That was when the human fleet attacked. Admiral Chun's ships emerged from behind the moon at maximum acceleration, firing weapons that the aliens had never encountered before. Gravitational bonds collapsed 3 alien cruisers into singularities. Quantum disruptors made 5 enemy vessels simply vanish from existence. Temporal mines froze an entire squadron in slowed time. "Direct hits across the board," reported Chun's tactical officer. "Enemy formation is in chaos." Engineer Lisa Murphy fired the stellar resonance cannon at Earth's sun. The focused gravitational pulse caused a massive solar flare that raced across the solar system at the speed of light. When it hit the alien fleet, every ship's electrical system overloaded simultaneously. 200 alien vessels went dark in the same instant. "Solar weapon successful," Lisa announced. "Enemy fleet is dead in space." Captain Joe Adams' infiltration force struck the alien command ships from within their own formation. The aliens never suspected that their own captured vessels would be turned against them. Joe's ships destroyed 6 enemy flagships before the aliens realized what was happening. "Surprise attack complete," Joe reported. "Enemy command structure is disrupted. They can't coordinate their forces." High Admiral Catherine stared in horror as his invincible fleet was torn apart by weapons that should not exist. Human ships moved faster than physics allowed. Human weapons violated the laws of thermodynamics. Human tactics defied every principle of galactic warfare. How is this possible? Catherine demanded. His tactical officer was pale with fear. "Sir, the humans have weaponized their own star. They're using gravity as a weapon. They're manipulating time and space itself. Sir, incoming transmission from the human fleet," reported the communications officer. Admiral Chun's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, the bridge of his ship showed humans working calmly at their stations, completely confident in their superiority. "Admiral Catherine," Chun said politely. "My name is Bobby Chun, Commander of the United Earth Fleet. I'm calling to inform you that your invasion has failed. You have exactly 1 hour to surrender your forces unconditionally." "Impossible," Catherine shouted. "I have 300 ships. "You had 300 ships," Chun corrected. "You now have about 50 ships that are still functional. And they won't be functional much longer." Chun gestured to someone off-screen. On the tactical display, Catherine watched a human weapon strike one of his battleships. The massive vessel simply disappeared, leaving behind a small black hole that consumed 2 nearby cruisers. "We've learned a lot about warfare in the past month," Chun continued. "We've studied your tactics, reverse-engineered your technology, and improved on both. We're now approximately 50 years ahead of your military development." "This is a trick," Catherine protested. "No species can advance that quickly." "We're humans," Chun replied with a smile. "We're very good at learning new ways to kill our enemies. We've had thousands of years of practice." Dr. Kevin Smith activated his most terrifying creation, a weapon that could make enemy ships age rapidly until they crumbled to dust. He targeted the remaining alien vessels and watched them decay in seconds. "Temporal weapon deployment successful," Kevin reported. "Enemy fleet is no longer a threat." The battle for Earth was over in less than 6 hours. The most powerful fleet in galactic history had been completely destroyed by a species That had been using chemical rockets just 1 month earlier. But the humans were not finished. President Maria Johnson addressed the world from the Oval Office. Behind her, screens showed human ships preparing to leave Earth's solar system. "My fellow humans," she began, "today we have won the greatest victory in our species' history. But this is not the end of the war. It is the beginning of humanity's expansion to the stars. The aliens came to our world expecting to find easy prey. Instead, they found the most dangerous species in the galaxy. We will now carry that lesson to every world in their empire." Admiral Chun led the human fleet toward the Zeltharian home system using navigation data captured from enemy ships. Behind him, 1,000 vessels followed, warships, troop transports, and colony ships filled with humans ready to claim their place among the stars. "All ships, this is Chun," he announced. "We are no longer defending Earth. We are now conquering the galaxy." The journey to the alien homeworld took 2 weeks using captured faster-than-light technology improved by human engineers. Ninzi? Human fleet arrived. They found a civilization that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. It took humanity exactly 72 hours to destroy it completely. High Admiral Catherine, now a prisoner aboard a human ship, was forced to watch as his empire crumbled. Human forces moved from system to system, defeating alien defenses with weapons and tactics that no species had ever imagined. "How?" Catherine asked Admiral Chun during one of their conversations. "How did you advance so quickly?" Chun looked at the former alien commander with something approaching pity. "You made one critical mistake," he said. "You assume that all species think the same way you do. But humans are different. You see warfare as a necessary evil to be conducted with minimal effort and maximum efficiency. We see warfare as the ultimate test of intelligence, creativity, and will. You have soldiers. We have warriors. You fight to maintain order. We fight to survive. You use tactics that have worked for 1,000 years. We invent new tactics every day. Most importantly, you attacked us believing we were primitive and weak. We are primitive. We are also the most dangerous species that has ever existed." 1 year after the first alien ship appeared over Earth, the Zeltharian Empire surrendered unconditionally. Th. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human ship New Horizon. His hands gripped the metal rail as he watched the massive space station ahead. Tenthari Prime was the center of galactic power. Today, it would decide the fate of all humanity. Captain's brown eyes showed worry. He had fought in 3 wars and explored unknown worlds, but nothing scared him more than this moment. Ambassador Lisa Carter was inside that station right now, fighting for their species with only words as weapons. "Any word from the ambassador?" Jake asked. Communications Officer Amy Brooks shook her head. Her blonde hair caught the light from the control panels. "Nothing yet, sir. The council session is still going on." Jake looked out at the other ships floating near the station. The Zephyrian vessels looked like silver daggers, sharp and cold. The Mordani ships were round and dark, covered in strange symbols. The Kithra fleet moved together like a school of fish, all connected by their hive mind. And the luminary ships glowed with bright energy, beautiful but alien. 12 species ruled the galaxy. Humans were trying to become the 13th. Chief Engineer Pete Collins walked onto the bridge. His thick arms were covered in grease from working on the engines. "Captain, I've been listening to the alien comm channels. It doesn't sound good. What are they saying?" Jake asked. Pete's face was grim. "Words like dangerous and unstable keep coming up. They're talking about us like we're some kind of disease." Dr. Helen Wade looked up from her science station. She was the ship's expert on alien life forms. The council species have been together for thousands of years. They follow strict rules and never take risks. To them, we must seem wild and unpredictable. Jake knew she was right. Humans did things differently. When other species spent years planning, humans acted on instinct. When aliens avoided dangerous places, humans rushed in to explore. This difference had made humans successful explorers and fighters, but it also made the other species afraid. The bridge grew quiet. Everyone watched the station and waited. Hours passed like days. Finally, Amy's panel beeped. Incoming message from Ambassador Carter. Put her through, Jake ordered. Lisa Carter's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired and sad. Her usually perfect suit was wrinkled, and her eyes were red. Captain Morrison, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The vote is complete. Jake felt his heart sink. He could already tell from her expression what the answer was. 12 votes against, 0 votes in favor, Lisa continued. Humanity has been rejected for membership in the Galactic Council. The bridge fell silent. Jake could hear the soft hum of the ship's engines and the quiet breathing of his crew. He had expected this result, but hearing it still felt like a punch to the stomach. There's more, Lisa said. They're not just rejecting our membership. They're banishing us from Council space entirely. What? Pete Collins shouted. They can't do that. Lisa nodded sadly. High Counselor Veltar of the Zephyrians made the announcement. They consider humanity too aggressive and dangerous to exist near civilized space. We have 90 days to remove all human personnel, ships, and colonies from Council territory. Dr. Wade stepped forward. What about our research stations? Our trade agreements? Our people who have made lives here? All of it, Lisa replied. Everything must go. Any human vessel found in Council space after the deadline will be destroyed. Without warning, Jake felt anger rising in his chest. Where are we supposed to go? They're giving us a sector on the galactic rim, far from their trade routes and important systems. It's mostly empty space with a few worthless planets. Lisa's voice cracked with emotion. They're treating us like criminals, Jake. Amy Brooks was crying now. She had friends among the younger aliens, people who had welcomed humanity with open arms. What about the ones who voted for us? What about our allies? The vote had to be unanimous, Lisa explained. Even our friends couldn't help us. The older species, the founding members, they control everything. Jake turned to look at his crew. These were good people who had given their lives to serve among the stars. Now they were being cast out like unwanted garbage. Captain, Pete said. Quietly, what do we do now? Before Jake could answer, Dr. Wade spoke up. Her voice was calm but determined. We survive. We adapt. We show them they made a mistake. How? Amy asked. Helen smiled for the first time that day. The same way humans have always survived. We work together, we never give up, and we prove that being different isn't the same as being wrong. Jake looked at the alien ships around them. Soon, those ships would be hunting any human who dared to cross into their space. The species that had rejected humanity thought they were protecting the galaxy from a dangerous threat. Set course for the rim sector, Jake ordered. Signal all human ships and stations. We're going home. As the new horizon turned away from Centauri Prime, Jake made a silent promise. The aliens thought they were getting rid of a problem by sending humans away. They had no idea that they had just given humanity the greatest gift possible, freedom to become something the galaxy had never seen before. The stars ahead looked cold and empty, but Jake Morrison smiled. Empty space meant room to grow. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was turning empty places into something amazing out behind them. The lights of the Galactic Council grew smaller and smaller until they disappeared entirely. The age of human exile had begun. But Jake had a feeling it would not end the way the Council expected. 50 years had passed since the Great Exile. Admiral Rick Stone stood on the observation deck of Liberty's End, the massive space station that now served as humanity's capital. Through the thick glass, he could see dozens of human ships moving, like busy ants around the station. Rick was older now, with gray hair and lines around his eyes. But his back was straight, and his mind was sharp. He had been a young lieutenant when the Council threw humanity out. Now he commanded the largest human fleet in history. "Admiral," called Commander Beth Taylor as she entered the room. "The morning reports are ready." Beth was in charge of the terraforming projects. She was a small woman with bright red hair and hands that were always dirty from working with soil and plants. Under her leadership, humans had turned 12 dead worlds into green, living planets. "How many new colonies this month?" Rick asked. "3 more worlds are ready for families," Beth replied with pride. "The Rodriguez family just moved to New Kansas yesterday. Little Maria Rodriguez will be the first baby born there." Rick smiled. When the Council had given humanity this empty sector, they thought it was a prison. The stars here were dim, and the planets were harsh. Most species would have died trying to live in such a place. But humans were different. "The Council species still don't understand us," Rick said. "They need perfect conditions to survive. The right temperature, the right air, the right gravity. If a planet isn't exactly like their home world, they can't live there." Beth nodded. "But we adapt. We change ourselves and our technology to fit any world. That dead ice planet? We built underground cities heated by the planet's core. That desert world with no water? We learned to pull moisture from the air and grow food in sand." Through the window, Rick could see the mining ships returning from the asteroid belt. The rocks in their sector were full of rare metals that the Council had never bothered to look for. Human miners worked in conditions that would kill most aliens, pulling treasure from the deadly void of space. "Captain Walsh is back from her exploration mission," Beth said. "She found something interesting." As if summoned by her name, Captain Nina Walsh walked onto the observation deck. She was a tough woman with short black hair and scars on her hands from years of exploration. Her ship, the Pathfinder, had been mapping the unknown regions beyond human space. "Admiral," Nina said with excitement in her voice, "you need to see what we found." She activated a small hologram projector. The image showed a strange ring-shaped structure floating in space. It was huge, big enough for a city to fit inside. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with soft blue light. "What is it?" Rick asked. "We think it's some kind of transportation device," Nina explained, "built by an ancient race that died out long ago. Our scientist Tony Clark thinks it can move ships across vast distances in seconds." Rick's eyes widened. The Council species used slow hyperdrive technology. Their fastest ships took months to cross the galaxy. If humans could master this ancient technology, they would have a huge advantage. "How many of these rings have you found?" he asked. 17 so far," Nina replied. "And they're all in regions the Council has never explored. The aliens stick to their safe, known space. They're afraid to go into the dark areas of the galaxy." Beth laughed. "Of course they are. Taking risks isn't in their nature. But humans? We see unknown space and think adventure." Rick thought about the implications. For 50 years, humanity had been growing stronger in their exile. They had better ships, more colonies, and technologies the Council couldn't match. The aliens thought they were keeping humanity contained, but they were actually giving them room to become something powerful. "There's more," Nina continued. "In the Helix Nebula, we found signs of another species. Not Council members. They seemed to be hiding from something." "Pirates?" Rick asked. "Maybe. Or maybe they're like us. Maybe they were thrown out by the council too. The three humans stood in comfortable silence, watching their ships and stations. In the distance, a group of children from the education ship were taking a field trip, their faces pressed against the windows as they looked at the stars. "Admiral," Beth said quietly, "do you think the council knows how strong we've become?" Rick considered the question. Human ships now moved through space, using Tony Clark's quantum tunnel drive. They could cross distances in days that took council vessels months. Human colonies were spreading to worlds the aliens thought were impossible to settle. The Human Defense Corps had grown from a few patrol ships to a real military force. They're starting to notice, Rick admitted. Our intelligence sources say the Zephyrians are asking questions. They expected us to struggle and maybe die out here. Instead, we're thriving. Good, Nina said with a fierce smile. Let them worry. They had their chance to work with us. They chose to throw us away instead. The question is, Rick said, what do we do when they come looking for us? Because they will come eventually, when they realize we're not the weak, contained humans they expected. Beth touched the glass window, looking out at the human children playing in the observation lounge of a nearby ship. We protect what we've built. We show them that Exile made us stronger, not weaker. Nina nodded in agreement. My grandmother used to tell stories about old Earth. She said humans were at their best when their backs were against the wall. When everything seemed hopeless, that's when we did impossible things. Rick thought about his own grandfather, who had been on the New Horizon during the Exile. The old man had died 5 years ago, but not before seeing humanity's first major colony ship launched. He told me the council thought they were solving a problem by getting rid of us, but they just gave us the freedom to become what we were meant to be. A young ensign approached the group. Admiral Stone? Dr. Clark is requesting a meeting. He says he's made a breakthrough with the ancient ring technology. Tell him we'll be right there, Rick replied Dot as they walked toward the science labs. Rick felt a familiar excitement. It was the same feeling he'd had as a young man when humanity first reached the stars. The feeling that something big was about to happen. The Council had exiled humanity to protect the galaxy from their dangerous nature. But what if being dangerous was exactly what the galaxy needed? What if the careful, rule-following aliens had grown so comfortable in their perfect order that they had forgotten how to face real challenges? Rick Stone smiled as he thought about the ancient rings and the mysteries they might unlock. The Council had given humanity 50 years alone in the darkness. Now it was time to show the galaxy what they had done with that gift. The age of human exile was ending. The age of human expansion was about to begin. 100 years had passed since the exile began. President Dan Foster stood in his office on New Terra, looking out at a sight that would have amazed the council members who had banished humanity. Floating cities drifted on crystal-clear oceans, while massive towers stretched up into space. Gardens and forests covered the mountainsides, and children played in parks where alien flowers bloomed alongside. Earth Roses. Dan was a big man with kind eyes and calloused hands from his days as a construction worker. He had helped build this world with his own sweat and determination. Now he led the Human Colonial Union, a collection of 47 worlds that stretched across the galaxy's outer rim. Mr. President, said his aide as she entered the office, General Murphy is here for the security briefing. General Kate Murphy walked in wearing the simple gray uniform of the Human Defense Corps. She was a small woman with fierce green eyes and silver hair, pulled back in a tight bun. Despite her size, she commanded respect from every soldier in the human fleet. Dan, she said, sitting down without ceremony. Kate had known the president since they were children on the same colony ship. We need to talk about the council situation. Don poured 2 cups of coffee from the pot on his desk. It was real coffee, grown in the volcanic soil of New Hawaii. What's the latest? Kate activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Human territory was marked in blue, council space in red. The blue areas had grown much larger over the past few decades. Their patrol fleets are having trouble, Kate reported. Pirates are hitting their trade routes almost daily. They're rigid. Military tactics aren't working against guerrilla fighters. Anne nodded. The council species had spent so long in peace that they had forgotten how to fight real wars. Their ships were big and powerful, but slow to react. Their commanders followed strict rules that made them predictable. Meanwhile, Kate continued with a slight smile. Our defense corps is stronger than ever. We have 500 fast attack ships, all equipped with Dr. Turner's quantum drives. We can hit a target and be gone before the enemy knows what happened. The quantum tunnel drive was humanity's greatest technological achievement, Dr. Alex. Turner had spent 30 years perfecting the technology found in the ancient ring gates. Now human ships could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. Speaking of Turner, Dan said, "How is the gate project going?" Kate's smile grew wider. "We've activated 57 gates so far. The network gives us access to regions of space the Council has never even seen. We're finding new worlds, new resources, and new friends," Dan finished. 3 months ago, Captain Roy Jenkins had made contact with a species called the Wanderers. They were nomads who lived on great ship cities, traveling between the stars. Like humanity, they had been exiled by the Council centuries ago for being too chaotic and unpredictable. "The Wanderers have been very helpful," Kate said. "They've told us about other exiled species. Apparently, the Council has a long history of throwing out anyone who doesn't fit their perfect order." Dan walked to the window and looked out at the busy spaceport. Human ships were landing and taking off constantly, carrying families to new colonies and bringing back resources from distant worlds. It was a sight of prosperity and growth that the Council had never expected to see. "There's something else," Kate said quietly. "We've been monitoring Council communications. Some of their younger members are asking questions about us." "What kind of questions?" "Why we were really exiled. Whether the Council made a mistake. Some of them want to visit our territory and see what we've built." Don wasn't surprised. The Council species had grown comfortable in their perfect, controlled civilization. But comfort could become a trap, while they had stayed the same for hundreds of years. Humanity had grown and changed and adapted. A soft chime announced another visitor. Dr. Alex Turner entered the office, carrying a tablet covered with complex diagrams. Alex was a thin man with wild gray hair and eyes that seemed to see things others missed. He had devoted his life to understanding the ancient technology of the ring gates. "Don, Kate," he said excitedly, "I've made a discovery that changes everything." He activated the tablet, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of small dots were scattered across the image, connected by glowing lines. "The ring network isn't just for transportation," Alex explained. "It's a defense system. The ancient builders, the ones who made the gates, they weren't just explorers. They were fighters." "Fighting what?" Dan asked. Alex's face grew serious. "Something called the Devourers. Machine intelligences that consume entire star systems. According to the ancient records I've decoded, they destroyed the gate builders' civilization eons ago." Kate leaned forward, her military mind immediately grasping the implications. "And you think they might come back?" "I think they never left," Alex said grimly. "I've been analyzing deep space sensor data from our exploration ships. There are dead systems out in the galactic void, systems that were stripped bare of all matter. The pattern matches the ancient descriptions of devourer attacks." Dan felt a chill run down his spine. "How long do we have?" "Unknown. Could be years, could be decades. But when they do come, the Council's rigid defenses won't stop them. The Devourers adapt and learn. They counter every strategy their enemies use. But the Gate Network can stop them? Kate asked. Alex nodded. The builders designed it as a galaxy-spanning weapon. It can send a pulse through space that shuts down all artificial intelligence. But using it would set back technological civilization by centuries. The three humans sat in silence, absorbing this information. Dan thought about the children playing in the parks outside, the families building new lives on distant worlds. Everything humanity had achieved could be threatened by these ancient machines. There's one more thing, Alex said softly. The weapon requires cooperation from across the galaxy to work. It needs operators at dozens of gate sites, all working together at the same time. Kate understood immediately. The Council would have to work with us, with all the exiled species. After spending a century teaching us to hate them, Dan added. Through the window, Dan could see the human ships coming and going. Each one carried people who had been told they were too dangerous for civilized society. People who had been thrown away like garbage and told to disappear. We have a choice, Dan said finally. We could let the Council face this threat alone. After what they did to us, we would have every right to turn our backs on them. Kate nodded grimly. They exiled us. They called us dangerous and unpredictable. They treated us like criminals. But, Alex said quietly, if we do nothing, everyone dies. Human, alien, it won't matter to the Devourers. They'll consume everything. Dan walked back to his desk and picked up a framed photo. It showed the first human colony ship landing on New Terra, with families stepping out into the sunlight of their new world. They looked hopeful and determined, ready to build something beautiful from nothing. My grandfather was on that ship, Dan said. He used to tell me that being human meant doing the right thing, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. Kate stood up, her hand moving to rest on her sidearm. If we're going to save the galaxy, we'll do it our way. No committees, no endless debates. We act fast and we act decisively. And we make sure the galaxy remembers who saved them, Alex added with a smile. The dangerous, unpredictable humans they tried to throw away. Dan looked out at New Terra one more time. A century ago, this had been a dead rock floating in empty space. Now it was home to millions of people, a testament to human determination and ingenuity. The Council had exiled humanity to protect the galaxy from their dangerous nature. Now that same dangerous nature might be the only thing that could save everyone. The age of hiding was over. The time had come for humanity to step back onto the galactic stage, not as supplicants begging for acceptance, but as the strong, capable people they had always been meant to be. Commander Sam Rivers carefully brushed dust away from the ancient metal plate. Her archaeological team had been digging in the ruins for 3 weeks, uncovering secrets that had been buried for millions of years. The planet was dead now. Its cities turned to dust, but the underground chambers still held treasures of knowledge. Sam called her assistant, Dr. Mike Foster. You need to see this. Sam walked over to where Mike was standing beside a massive wall covered in symbols. The writing glowed softly as their lights hit it, as if the metal itself was alive. It's a historical record, Mike explained, excitement in his voice. The translation program has been working on it all night. These symbols tell the story of the architects, the ones who built the Gate Network. Sam read the translated text on her tablet. Her brown eyes grew wide as she understood what it meant. They were exiled too, she whispered according to the record. The architects had once been part of an even older galactic civilization, but their creativity and willingness to take risks had made the other species nervous. Sound familiar? Sam thought grimly. It gets worse, Mike said. Or better, depending on how you look at it. The architects were banished for the same reasons we were. Too dangerous, too unpredictable, too willing to change things. Sam felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air in the ruins. History was repeating itself across millions of years. The same fear of change, the same rejection of those who were different. "Send this information to Admiral Barnes immediately," she ordered, "and encrypt it with the highest security codes." 5,000 light-years away, Admiral Chris Barnes stood in the construction bay of the secret shipyard. Before him rose the most powerful vessel humanity had ever built. The Defiance was huge, bigger than any council ship, but it moved with grace and speed that would shame their fastest fighters. "She's beautiful," said his chief engineer. Lieutenant Pete Wilson. Chris nodded, his gray eyes taking in every detail of the massive ship. The Defiance combined human innovation with architect technology and techniques learned from the Wanderers. It was a symbol of everything humanity had become during their exile. "How long until she's ready?" Chris asked. 2 more weeks for the final systems," Pete replied. "The quantum tunnel drives are unlike anything we've built before. This ship could cross the entire galaxy in less than a week." Chris smiled grimly. The Council still thought in terms of their slow hyperdrive technology. They had no idea that humanity could now move ships and entire fleets across vast distances almost instantly. A communication alert chimed in his implant. "Admiral," came the voice of his communications officer. "Priority message from Commander Rivers' archaeological team." "Put it through," Chris said. As he read Sam's report, Chris felt the pieces of a massive puzzle clicking into place. The architects, the ancient Exile, the repeating pattern of galactic civilizations rejecting those who were different. It painted a picture that was both hopeful and terrifying. On the political front, Vice President Julia Green was making her own discoveries. She sat in a small, hidden meeting room on the space station Unity, across from a young Zephyrian named Commander Lex Tar.Lex was different from the typical Zephyrian. His silver skin had strange markings that showed he was from one of the outer colonies. His large eyes held intelligence and curiosity instead of the cold calculation Julia was used to seeing from his species. "My people are starting to ask questions," Lex said in careful human English. "The younger generation especially. We look at your achievements and wonder why our leaders were so afraid of you." Julia poured tea from a pot made on New Terra. Simple gestures seemed to fascinate the alien. "What kind of questions?" "Why we never tried to understand humans instead of just fearing them. Why we waste so much time in committees while you solve problems quickly. Why our colonies struggle to survive while you turn dead worlds into gardens." Julia smiled. "Change is scary. Your leaders chose safety over growth. And now we are paying the price," Lex admitted. "Our trade routes are attacked daily by pirates. Our military cannot adapt to new threats. Some of our colonies are asking to leave the Council and govern themselves." "What about the other species?" Julia asked. "The same problems everywhere. The young Mordani speak of revolution. Even some luminary question whether the old ways are still working." Lex leaned forward. "There are rumors that some council members want to make contact with humanity. Unofficially, of course." Julia felt a surge of hope. After a century of isolation, cracks were appearing in the council's perfect order. The exile that was supposed to contain humanity might instead lead to the council's own transformation. The mood changed dramatically when Captain Bill Hayes and his squadron encountered a council patrol fleet in what both sides thought was their own territory. Bill was a veteran pilot with steady nerves and quick reflexes, commanding a group of human fast attack ships on a routine patrol. "Unknown vessels, you are in violation of council space," came the transmission from the lead Zephyrian ship. "Withdraw immediately or face destruction." Bill checked his navigation systems. According to human maps, they were clearly in the neutral zone between territories. But the Council had apparently expanded their patrol routes without informing anyone. Council. Ships, this is Captain Hayes of the Human Defense Corps. We show our position as neutral space. We have no intention of violating your territory. Humans are banned from this sector. You have 30 seconds to withdraw, or we will open fire. Bill faced a choice that could start a war. He could retreat and show weakness, or he could stand his ground and risk a battle that would cost lives on both sides. Then he remembered his training and smiled. All ships, execute pattern Delta. He ordered his squadron. What happened next became legend in both human and Council military circles. Bill's ships moved like dancers, using their superior speed and maneuverability to disable the Council vessels without destroying them. Precise shots knocked out engines and weapons, while avoiding life support systems in less than 5 minutes. The entire Council patrol was helpless but alive. Bill's squadron had demonstrated human military superiority while showing remarkable restraint. Council ships, Bill transmitted to the disabled vessels. We are transmitting the location of the nearest Council outpost. Rescue ships should reach you within 6 hours. We suggest you update your navigation charts to avoid future misunderstandings. The encounter sent shockwaves through both governments. The Council leadership was horrified to learn that humans possessed such advanced military capabilities. Human leaders were proud of their forces, skilled but worried about the implications. President Foster called an emergency meeting of his Security Council. The secret is out, he said grimly. The Council knows we're not the weak, scattered refugees. They thought we were. Good, said General Murphy. Let them know. Maybe they'll think twice before threatening us again. But Dr. Turner brought worse news. His deep space monitoring stations had detected massive energy signatures at the galaxy's edge. Something huge was moving through the void between galaxies, heading toward civilized space. The Devourers? President Foster asked. I believe so, Turner replied, and they're not alone. The energy signatures suggest an entire fleet of machine intelligences, bigger than anything in our historical records. Julia Green returned from her secret meeting with disturbing intelligence. The Council. Patrol routes are in chaos. Pirates are hitting them almost at will. Some Council worlds are considering surrender rather than continue fighting. How long before the Council's government collapses? Foster asked. Unknown, Julia replied. But their rigid command structure is fracturing. When the Devourers arrive, they won't be able to mount an effective defense. Admiral Barnes made the final report that sealed humanity's fate. The Defiance is ready for active duty. Our shipyards can produce 1 ship of her class every month. We have the military strength to protect ourselves, but not to save the entire galaxy, Foster finished. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had the power to survive the coming storm, but millions of other beings would die. The same aliens who had exiled them, who had called them dangerous and unpredictable, would face extinction while humanity watched from safety. There's one more thing, Dr. Turner said quietly. The architect weapon, the one that can stop the Devourers? It requires operators at 67 gate sites simultaneously. We only control 32 of them. The rest are in Council space. General Murphy realized President Foster stood up and walked to the window, overlooking New Terra's capital city. Children were playing in the parks while their parents worked to build a better future. A century ago, these people had been refugees with nothing but hope and determination. They threw us away, Foster said softly, called us too dangerous for civilized society. Now they need that same dangerous nature to survive. The irony was perfect and terrible. The galaxy's salvation lay in the hands of the people it had rejected. The question now was whether humanity would prove to be the bigger people, or whether a century of exile had bred too much hatred to overcome. Outside the window, human ships continued their patrols, protecting a civilization built from the ashes of rejection. Soon, those same ships might be called upon to protect the very people who had cast them out, the final test of humanity's Kara. The first Devourer ships appeared at the galaxy's edge like dark ghosts emerging from a nightmare. Admiral Chris Barnes watched the sensor readings with growing dread as the machine fleet consumed everything in its path. Entire star systems simply vanished, leaving only empty space where billions of lives had existed moments before. How many ships? He asked his tactical officer. Estimated 12,000 vessels, sir. And they're learning from every encounter with Council forces. Chris studied the battle reports flooding in from the outer rim. The Council fleets were being systematically destroyed. Their rigid tactics and slow decision-making processes made them easy prey for machines that adapted with every engagement. New Terra, President Dan Foster, faced the hardest decision of his presidency. The Human Senate was in emergency session, and the debate had been raging for 6 hours. Half the senators wanted to help the Council worlds, while the other half argued for protecting humanity first. "They exiled us," shouted Senator Rob Clark from New Texas. "They called us dangerous monsters and threw us away. Now they come crawling back for help when they need us." Senator Linda Hayes from New Boston stood up. "And what does that make us if we turn our backs on innocent civilians? Children are dying out there while we debate politics." Foster listened to both sides, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. Through the chamber's windows, he could see the lights of the capital city. Every one of those lights represented families who had built new lives from nothing after being cast out by the Galaxy Dot. The debate was interrupted by an urgent message. A badly damaged Zephyrian ship had entered human space, carrying a single passenger. Young Commander Lextar, the same alien who had been secretly meeting with Vice President Green, was requesting asylum and humanitarian aid. "Bring him to the chamber," Foster ordered. 10 minutes later, the wounded Zephyrian stood before the Human Senate. His silver skin was burned, and his breathing was labored, but his large eyes held desperate hope. "Honorable humans," Lex began, in broken English. "My world, my people all gone. The machines came so fast. Children screaming in the streets. Elders who had lived for centuries turned to ash in seconds." The Senate chamber fell silent. Even the hardest opponents of helping the Council were moved by the young alien's pain. "I come not as Council representative," Lex continued. "I come as person asking for help. Please, you are only hope left." Senator Clark, who had been arguing against intervention, slowly stood up. His own grandfather had died during the human exile, refusing Council medical aid out of pride. "Son," he said, gently, "what happened to your family?" Lex's composure finally broke. Tears ran down his silver cheeks. "All dead. Parents, siblings, everyone. I only survived because Captain Barnes' ship found my escape pod." The mention of Captain Barnes stirred murmurs throughout the chamber. Jack Barnes, Chris's younger brother, commanded a human patrol ship that had been conducting reconnaissance near Council space. He had disobeyed direct orders to rescue alien survivors. President Foster made his decision. The chair calls for an emergency vote. All in favor of military intervention to help defend the galaxy against the Devourer threat? The vote was unanimous. General Kate Murphy took command of the largest military operation in human history. The combined human fleet consisted of over 2,000 ships, including the mighty Defiance and her sister ships. They were faster, more maneuverable, and more adaptable than anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Remember," Kate addressed her commanders, "we're not just fighting for the Council. We're fighting for every living being in the galaxy. That includes us. The human fleet used Dr. Turner's gate network to appear throughout the galaxy simultaneously. Their hit-and-run tactics proved devastatingly effective against the Devourers. While Council ships tried to fight pitched battles and were quickly overwhelmed, human vessels struck like lightning and vanished before the machines could respond. Captain Roy Jenkins led a squadron of human ships alongside Wanderer vessels, and a group of young Council officers who had rejected their leader's rigid tactics. Together, they saved the industrial world of Kepler-7, evacuating 12 million civilians before the Devourers arrived. "You fight like madmen," observed Wanderer Captain Driftsinger after the battle. "It is beautiful to watch." "We fight like humans," Roy replied with a grin. "Same thing." The real breakthrough came when Dr. Alex Turner made contact with reform-minded scientists from several Council species. Working together, they began to understand the true scope of the Architect Defense Network, but what they found was terrifying. An ETWORK can stop the Devourers, Turner explained to the Joint Command Staff, but activating it will shut down all artificial intelligence in the galaxy. That includes our computer systems, our ship navigation, our life support controls, everything. Admiral Barnes understood immediately. It's a reset button for galactic civilization. Exactly. We'll be thrown back to the technological level of our ancestors. No faster-than-light travel, no advanced medicine, no global communications. It could take centuries to rebuild. General Murphy studied the tactical displays. The Devourers were adapting to human tactics now, becoming harder to fight with each engagement. How long do we have to decide? The main Devourer intelligence has established itself at the galactic core, Turner replied. If we're going to use the weapon, it has to be now. Once it fully integrates with the galaxy's energy grid, it will be too powerful to stop. The final battle began with the largest fleet action in galactic history. Ships from dozens of species, led by human commanders using unconventional tactics, fought desperately to hold the line while Dr. Turner and his team prepared the Architect. Weapon. Admiral Chris Barnes commanded the assault on the galactic core from the bridge of the Defiance. Around him, the space was filled with ships of every design imaginable. Human vessels darted between massive Council dreadnoughts, while Wanderer ship cities provided covering fire. "All gate stations report ready," came Turner's voice over the communication system. "Weapon charging sequence initiated. 60 seconds to activation. All ships, this is Admiral Barnes," Chris broadcast to the fleet. "Whatever happens next, remember that you fought for something greater than yourselves. You fought for life itself." The Architect weapon activated with a pulse of energy that swept across the galaxy at faster than light speed. Every artificial intelligence, every computer system, every technological device more complex than a mechanical clock simply stopped working. The silence that followed was absolute. Ships drifted powerless through space. Space stations went dark. On 1 billion worlds, people looked up at skies no longer filled with the lights of orbital platforms and wondered what had happened. But the Devourers were gone. Their machine intelligence, dependent on quantum processors beyond anything biological minds could create, had been completely erased by the pulse. The galaxy was saved, but at a price that would take generations to fully understand. 10 years. Later, Admiral Sarah Morrison, granddaughter of the old Exile ship captain Jake Morrison, stood on the bridge of the first Federation vessel. It was a simple ship by the standards of the old days, built with mechanical systems and basic electronics that could survive in the post-pulse galaxy. Around her worked beings from dozens of species. Humans and Zephyrians, Wanderers and Reformed. Council members, all working together to rebuild what had been lost. The Galactic Council had dissolved itself in the aftermath of the crisis, replaced by the Federation of Free Worlds, an organization based on cooperation rather than control. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, "a young human woman named Beth Collins. We're receiving signals from the Outer Rim colonies. They're ready to begin the next phase of reconstruction." Sarah smiled, thinking of her grandfather's stories about the dark days of exile. The old man had lived to see humanity's triumphant return to galactic politics, but he had died peacefully in his sleep before the great crisis began. "Send a message to all Federation worlds," Sarah ordered. "Tell them we're coming home." Through the view screen, she could see other ships joining the convoy. Human vessels flew alongside former Council ships, their crews learning to work together in ways their governments had never imagined possible. The galaxy was smaller now, more primitive. In some ways, faster-than-light travel was limited and dangerous without computer assistance. Communication between worlds took weeks instead of seconds, but it was also more united than it had ever been. "You know," said her first officer, as Ephraim named, "Velsan. My grandfather was one of the council members who voted to exile humanity. He spent his final years regretting that decision." "And my grandfather was on the ship that took us into exile," Sarah replied. "He used to say that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing in disguise." The Federation convoy moved through space at the stately pace of mechanical engines, carrying supplies and teachers to worlds still struggling to rebuild. It would take decades to restore galactic civilization to its former level, but this time, it would be built on foundations of cooperation and mutual respect. Humanity had been cast out as too dangerous for civilized society. In the end, it was that same dangerous spirit, the willingness to take risks, to adapt, to sacrifice for others, that had saved everyone. The age of exile was over. T